Welcome. How are you? If you'd all please move in and take your seats. There are more seats over here on the side. We want to get started right away. Or, great. If you'd all move in and take seats over here, wherever you see a blank seat, we're getting out some more. And if the 4 candidates for school committee could join me back here. The other candidates are mixing in for the time being. We're going to lead off with the school committee so they can start here and then move off stage center at the appropriate time. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Dr. Cahill.
Okay, 7:01, we're a minute behind. It is going to be, with this, we have a lot of candidates. There are 18 people to speak tonight, so unfortunately, it's going to be 12, 14. It's going to be fairly tight. And we have timekeepers on the front, Joan Johnson, and our dear friend and volunteer, Carolyn.
Mason.
What do I want to do? Lift this up, okay. Welcome, first of all, welcome. This is, you figured it out, it's the farm, if you didn't know before, it's the Farms Prides Community Association. The building is the Hastings House. Farms Prides has been in this building, the house building, since 1958, and we've been in the gym since 1966. We like to have events for the community. This is the first one of these we've done in a long time. Our 5 events hosted by Hastings House are St. Patrick's Day, the 4th of July dance, Easter egg hunt, I got that in the backward order. Haunted Hastings, which our board member David O'Brien is going wild on downstairs, and that's on the 25th. And then a tree lighting. Those are all sponsored by Hastings House. We are available for other functions, lots of bar mitzvahs, birthday parties, but I won't go into advertising for this now because we're short of time. My moderators are Paul Leighton of the Beverly Beat, a wonderful Substack newsletter. We missed him as a reporter, and we're glad to have him in this iteration. And Andrea Urbano, she's a special ed specialist, a neighbor, and was willing to say yes because we see her every morning, and she couldn't turn my wife down. So. So you've seen the programs, I hope. Look around if you don't know what the program is going to be. We're starting with the school committee candidates, and the moderators will explain the timings. Pardon? Oh yes, before we get to that, don't neglect the home folks. The 2 home folks here, this is Ward B, Precinct 6, and they are not contested offices. Matt has been our city councilor for quite a while. City councilor at large, he's going to speak. And then he'll be followed by John Taylor, who is an uncontested spot for the seat that Lorinda Visnick, after many years, took, and he's stepping into that slot. So, Matt.
Thank you. Good evening. I told Pete I'd be really quick. So I want to thank Pete Johnson and the Farms Prides Community Association. Very great to be here tonight at the Hastings House. I just want to start by acknowledging the recent loss of my father-in-law, Steve Dunn. He was a true farmer and really loved living in this community. I really appreciate everyone that's reached out to us over the last few days. It's really meant a lot to our family. I'm the Ward 6 City Councilor. I'm running for re-election. Fortunately for me, I'm unopposed, as Pete said, and will be the only name on the ballot on November 4th. However, never take anything for granted. I try to work hard every day and continue to earn your support. Just quickly about me, grew up in Beverly, graduate of Beverly High School, Villanova University, married to Elizabeth Dunn, and father of 3, Emma, Charlotte, and Bowden. In terms of my public service, this is my second term as the Ward 6 City Councilor. I chair the subcommittee on finance and property in the city budget hearings. I also chair the audit committee, informally served as an at-large city councilor for 2 terms. Professionally, I work as a senior vice president, oversee human resources and communications. I've had a career in government and politics. I worked for 4 governors, including Charlie Baker in the governor's office. Top issues I'm working on, the thing I hear the most is roads and sidewalks, public safety, speeding on our streets. So I'm getting the red stop sign here, and I would just say appreciate everyone and being involved here tonight, and please would be honored to have your vote on November 4th. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for coming out. My name is John Taylor. When I was a little boy, I struggled with learning, and I went to our public educational schools. I'm a big fan of public education, which is why I'm running for school committee. And I had a math anxiety when I was there, and I was really frustrated learning. So with that in mind, I became a certified public accountant, right? I'm not today, and boy, does our community need that, because we're going through some financial turmoil, and the mayoral candidates will talk about that. I'm getting the red sign right now, so I need to wrap it up, but I need to tell you that just like Schubert, who's going to be holding a sign outside Centerville School, I know all of you are going to vote on November 4th, 2025. You can vote on November 2nd too, but November 4th, 2025. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, John, for starting us off. My name is Andrea. I'm one of the moderators, and I'm going to just lay it out what we're going to be attempting to do with our great timekeepers who are going to keep all of the candidates in line. You saw how that worked, right? Okay. We're going to start off with the school committee at large candidates. There are 4 candidates. They are each going to get 1 minute to do a brief introduction, so you sort of know who they are. You're looking at their face, right? And then all 4 of them will be asked 2 questions, and they'll have only about 2 minutes, right? 2 minutes to answer the question, okay? After the school committee, it will then be the city councilor at large. They'll all come up. They will also have 3 questions. They will be given 4 minutes to answer their questions, and then we'll have the mayoral candidates, okay? And they will have 5 questions to answer. Some of those questions we're hoping will come from the audience. So if you can go over to the table, you have a question, maybe we're not asking it yet, or you have something that you really want answered, go over, write it down on the card, and we are going to try to get to those at the end of each group, okay? Sound good? All right, so let's get started. I'm gonna call up Rachel Abel to come up. Just do your 1 minute introduction. Okay.
Okay. My name is Rachel Abel. I live over in Shingleville. I'm married with 2 kids at the Beverly High School. One's a junior, one's a senior, and I've been doing school committee for 10 years here in Beverly. So I was inspired to run for office back when Beverly was considering whether or not to build the new middle school. And thankfully, that was something that did move forward, and both of my girls spent 4 wonderful years there. It hasn't been without challenges. As we know, the COVID pandemic was part of our experience in the Beverly Public Schools, but I really appreciate everyone that's come out tonight. I appreciate the Hastings House, the BevCam for making this accessible to everyone, and Paul and Andrea, thank you so much. I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Geraldine Cahill. You're minute introduction.
Okay. Hi, I'm Geraldine, or Jerry Cahill, as everybody calls me. I've been a member of this community for 45 years. I've raised 8 of my own children in this community and taken care of another couple thousand over the 40 years I've been doing foster care. All of my kids have gone through Beverly Public Schools, some of them very successfully, others not quite so successfully. I became involved, I was a school bus driver for 28 years. I've been involved with special education. I've presented at the YAR conference in 24 and 25 on youth at risk and how we prevent those children from being at risk. That's really distracting. There you go. I think that the reason why it's important now for me to be involved in the school committee is because I think that we'd lack sort of the fundamental transparency that used to be there when my kids went to school. We don't know what programs are available. We don't know what's going on with the budget. We don't know what's going on with a lot of things. And I think it's time that we made stuff really transparent. Thank you.
Thank you. Now candidates from District B, Lorinda Visnick.
Thank you. My name is school committee member. I serve in the role as committee vice president, chair of finance and facilities, chair of policy, appointee to the financial forecasting committee, as well as the operational sustainability committee. And at the very end of the teacher's strike, I was named onto the negotiations committee. During my time as a school committee member, we have instituted free full-day kindergarten and passed resolutions to support the Fair Share Amendment, increase our cultural proficiency, and conduct an audit of our equity. I brought forward policies to introduce share tables and prevent book bans. Most recently, I authored a resolution to request an audit of our district's early intervention and special education services. I'm a first-generation college graduate who stands as an example of education as the great equalizer. My record of serving this community, combined with my experience and my current position as a PhD student in public policy, make me uniquely qualified to serve as the District B representative. Thank you.
And Brad Willenbach.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank all of you for joining us today for this important community event. Paul and Andrea, thank you for being our moderators. I think, Jerry, you said you've been in the area for 40 years. I think I have you beat by 8. I was born in Beverly, so I've been in the area for 48 years on and off. I'm a school teacher in Lynn, Massachusetts for the past 8 years, and I've been teaching for 18. I have children who are in Beverly Public Schools. One has just graduated, and I have a middle schooler and a high schooler. And most importantly, I really believe in the future of our city. And I want to bring hope to our schools. I want to bring hope to our city through conversation, through collaboration, and through really the wisdom of all of you, and bring that back to our deliberation as we work on policy and work with the superintendent to make our schools be the best they can be. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Now, the way this is going to work is you all will get the chance to answer both questions. We're going to start off with District A with the first question, and then B will get the chance, and then we'll go around. Okay? Paul?
Great. Thank you, Andrea. My question is, what would you do as a school committee member to help the city heal after the divisive teacher strike?
Yes, please, Rachel. Yeah.
So I think many of you recognize my face, or at least saw my community updates. We had a very challenging November last year. I think I have a little post-traumatic stress myself. There are so many important things happening in our district, and we can't lose sight of the important work that we've been doing together for so many years. I think that it's important that we see the humanity in each of us and understand that public service is hard. it's harder now than it ever has been before. I think there are so many things that we all share in common and that we want for our students that will bring us back together. I like to say that I have sort of a long memory and a short memory, and I would like to move forward from any of the accusations or misunderstandings that we had in our community and try to get to a place where there's more understanding. I think that in the way that things played out in our community, as well as the surrounding communities that also chose to strike at the same time, there was a lack of understanding about some of the data, some of the important things such as time on learning, the actual cost of paying everyone's salary that was in the district, and just some talking past each other. And I think as part of the healing, we really need to spend more time together, collaborating, problem solving. FY27 is going to be one of the most challenging budgets I have ever had to work with. I think it's really important with our new superintendent to bring the experience that I have. I've served on many of the committees that Ms. Visnick had mentioned, financial forecasting, finance and facilities. I've spent so much time with the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, talking with other districts. We are not alone in the challenges that we are facing, increasing costs, increasing needs, limited resources, and I really feel that I have a lot of experience that I can help our new superintendent navigate the challenges, as well as I still maintain excellent relationships with many of our teachers and educators, so I think the healing has started, and I look forward to continuing it. Thanks.
Thank you. Jerry, I'm just going to remind everyone it's a 2-minute. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, they have.
Does my time start now?
No.
Okay. As far as like breaching sort of the divide between what's gone on, I think that I can go back to transparency, that I think if people had more information about what was going on and understood sort of where everybody was standing with things. I understand, because I did negotiate contracts, that there's a certain amount of information you can't share publicly, but I think that there were so many times when there just wasn't enough information that was given to people, including the teachers. I have negotiated many contracts. We've sat across the table from each other, Rachel and I have, and I find that the biggest issue is sort of the lack of respect and how things are dealt with on that level. I think when we walk away from something and don't return to it in a timely fashion, it leads people to come to sort of opinions that are not conducive to making a good decision on things. In my own dealings on the negotiating committee, I found that we would just get answers like, nope, can't do that, and they'd walk away. As far as being able to sort of bridge that divide, I think that working together, having open communication, maybe a citywide newsletter, a school-wide newsletter that comes out from the administration, I think we need to focus on trust and respect and rebuilding, and I think that's going to be a really long mission, and I think without that trust, that we're not going to go far with rebuilding the relationship between the administration and the teachers and the community as a whole.
Thank you. Lorinda?
So the good news is that the Salem News asked us a very similar question, and I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. So my answer to the Salem News is that I've been working on listening to learn, not to respond. I've invited several community members and educators to one-on-one meetings where they can openly communicate whatever they wish. I've read and continue to read and encourage others to read books related to how we might solve this divide. Those books include Why We're Polarized, High Conflict, Love Your Enemies, and several others. Amongst other things, I'm trying to use techniques in my studies as well as in our community, techniques inspired by Mary Parker Follett. Her ideas are embedded in the concept of interest-based bargaining. It involves having participatory democracy and integrative solutions based on shared goals as a way to move forward. And one example that we can see from our teacher strike was the idea that the teachers wanted a longer recess. And the word on the street was that the school committee didn't want a longer recess. And that is absolutely false. I'm aware of the studies. I know children do better when they can wiggle, when they can run. Their brains are activated. They're better learners. I too, my entire committee wanted longer recess. And we had a hard time getting there because we're up against a requirement by the Department of Ed that says that our time on learning has to meet a certain standard. And so how do I increase recess and still keep that time on learning? I need to lengthen the day. While my teachers were bargaining for more money for their current day. And really, we have realities of a budget, and there is only so much money available. And so what we can do is think outside the box and come up with new ideas. That's integrative thinking. Thank you.
So I've had the benefit of being shaped by Beverly Public Schools. And I recall in third grade, when I was in Hannah Elementary School, my third grade teacher's name was Mrs. Eleanor Houston. I don't know if anybody knows her. But she met me on the first day of school with the most warm and genuine and welcoming smile that really convinced me that education was a path I could take. And it's that warmth and that community that many teachers have that I think will bring us back to a place of healing, a place of vision for greatness for our public schools. And so how do we get there? How do we get our teachers, our educators, our communities, our parents to be able to get to a point where they're welcoming and they're ready to receive openly and hopefully. And I really believe that comes with active listening. It comes with bringing people together and hearing multiple voices, some which may not be ones that you're agreeing with, but you're still listening and learning. And from that information, bringing in ideas that will help solve very difficult and complicated problems. And when people see that we're working together and their voices are heard, that hope is regenerated, and we can start moving forward as a district and as a city. Stronger cities, or stronger schools lead to stronger cities. And that's what our school district can be. It can be a source of strength for our city of Beverly, which I have a humongous amount of pride in. And I'm hoping that as the days go on and months go on, we can get towards a place of healing leaning on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. For our second question, we're going to start with Lorinda, okay? So here's the second. It'll be Lorinda and Brad, and then Rachel and Jerry. Okay. So the question, what are your ideas for fostering a school community that is mentally, physically, and socially healthy?
Mentally, physically, socially. So let's start with physically. Physically, we have a plethora of offerings in our school district, a lot of extracurricular activities, and just last week we had Walk to School Day for all our elementary children. I don't know how many of you realize, but a whole bunch of our children get bused to school. And that thing I just said about children wiggling and exercising and their brains being ready to learn, when you ride a bus to school, you don't get that opportunity. So Walk to School Day, the buses stop at a designated place and the children walk the rest of the way to school. Yesterday, the day before, I was sign holding outside a cove and there was a huge biking line. So they have organized a group of children who bike to school on some interval. So we have those kinds of things. If we had better sidewalks, when we have better sidewalks, I'm sorry, please don't be offended, city councilors. But the budget is tight, so I know we don't have a lot of money in roads and sidewalks. It becomes easier for people to walk and bike to school. So physically, there we go. Socially, emotionally, mentally, I think our curriculum is good. We have a curriculum committee. The pendulum has swung a couple of times. We're back to the science of reading. If you pay attention to curriculum, you'll know that that pendulum has swung nationwide. I was not a fan of everyday math, and I'm glad we swung away from that. My children struggled with everyday math. And then emotionally, we've had social emotional learning in our schools for a while. We have zones of regulation. We talk about our feelings. We have morning meeting. We sit together. We break bread together. And we learn how to communicate with one another. And that's a little bit missing on our national level right now. And so actually our children could teach us a thing or two about that.
Thank you.
So physically, I'm a firm believer in providing before and after school opportunities, especially for our young students, to be able to get exercise and to be moving together. I also am interested in, at the middle school and high school levels, firming up our athletic programs to making sure that they're accessible for all students, regardless of ability, to give them the opportunity to move and have fun together in a social way. Mentally, I think this is where I need to address our crisis, I'm going to call it, with special education. And we really need to focus on making sure that our teachers, our educators, and our students who learn differently have equitable resources and support so that they can be the amazing students that they can be. We also need to make sure that the learners who are able to conceptualize and be with the curriculum are being motivated and pushed forward as well. So it's important for educators to be really part of that process of making sure they know the students best and making sure they're informing us as a school committee and the superintendent of the needs that their students have. Social emotionally, this is something I hold near and dear to my heart, especially with our LGBTQ plus students. As many of you, some of you might know, Braden Willenbrock is my son, and he was very much an advocate in the pride flag raising ceremonies. And I'm just really proud of the work Dr. Morgan's done and the work the district's done to make sure that students of diverse identities and diverse races are being included in our district and supported and motivated to be part of a community like ours. So I'm hoping there's progress in that area and getting us ready for a more diverse community in the future. I think we need to make sure we're providing professional development for staff and for our teachers. Thank you.
So a fundamental role of a school committee member is to represent all of our students. And for many of our students, the best part of their day is the after-school sports. Could be gym class, could be band. I have a kid right now out on the field in the marching band, and that is a highlight. And not coincidentally, they start that class at 8 a.m., so everyone is on time to school. I think one of the challenges our community has is to balance our fiduciary realities with the needs of what is best for our kids. And so while there's core curriculum and mandates of what we must do at our district, there are so many things that Beverly does to provide opportunities for all of our students to make them feel good about themselves, about going to school, being there every day, getting there on time. And I think one of the commitments that I make to our community is to think about all students. I recognize that there are challenges that we are trying to address, but I think from a social emotional standpoint, as well as a physical standpoint, we need to keep all of the opportunities, offer the inclusion that we see. I was just at a basketball game after school today that was fantastic with Counselor Flowers. We just need to keep all of those opportunities alive in our community, and it will be really difficult if we can't find creative solutions together to make a balanced budget that works for all of our students. I think that is a super important piece of the work that we will do together with the new superintendent, Dr. Peter Cushing. He's bringing a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of hope to our district. And I think that the new school committee, when it's seated on January 2nd, 3rd, would really need to hit the ground running, because this will, again, be one of the more challenging times for our students, and we really need to think about all of them. So thank you so much.
Well, ditto on all the activity stuff. Yes, I think we need to keep our kids engaged in sports and engaged in outdoor activities and recess. I think that that's all really important. I think my focus is more on the social, emotional, mental health piece of it, because that's what I deal with the most. I work with a lot of families in Beverly that have children that have extreme emotional or mental health needs. Oftentimes those kids fall between the cracks because they go out to a program and they're 120 days in some residential program where they get an hour or so of academics, and then they come back to school. And some cases, and one particular, that missed 96 days of her 8th grade year of school and was put into high school. And, you know, and as we tried to negotiate that with the team, it was, you know, oh no, we can make up on all that stuff when she goes to high school. And we're in the first quarter of high school, and already she's out of school again because she can't keep up with the academic demands, causing depression. So I think we need to be more in touch with what our kids are actually going through. I see them every day. For those of you who don't know me, I work for a mental health agency, and I work bringing families and getting them back together and bringing them back to the community. These kids are struggling, and I think that, you know, we see the scores and we see how many kids graduated. I have kids that graduated that couldn't read. And I'm not saying just couldn't read, they couldn't read. I had a kid that was put in Algebra 2, or Algebra 1, that didn't know how to multiply or divide. And the solution was, okay, well, we'll teach them how to multiply and divide while we're teaching algebra. I don't know about any of you if you remember algebra. I don't remember algebra, but I know I had to know multiplication and division before I got to algebra. So that being said, I think we need to really work on the mental health and what we can help these kids sort of accomplish while they're going through school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
You go.
Thank you. Yes, I would like to ask, what letter grade would you give the Beverly Public Schools, and what is the #1 step you would take to improve them?
And Rachel, we'll start with you.
So, like my blood type, B positive, I would give us a B+. I think we still have lots of opportunity, but I have been witness to the amazing things that have been happening over the past decade. I have sort of a front seat view with 2 students, a junior and a senior, but I've also had the opportunity, since I work from home, to be included in so many wonderful things that our district does on a daily basis. I think that, I don't know if I have 2 minutes or 1 minute for this question, 2, okay. There's always room for growth. I think if we ever were to rest on our laurels or think that we can stop learning, we would be foolish. There are so many opportunities, but I think that our community has always valued education. If you look back at the original books from when we first were chartered, I mean, we had a schoolhouse nearly immediately. It was such a priority for our community back in the 1600s. But all of the new money that our taxpayers, our business owners can afford have been going into our schools. If you look at the balance sheets, we have been fighting an uphill battle with declining state aid, and that's more important right now than ever before. It really affects our ability to deliver all of the services that our students deserve and need. And I'm hopeful that with my experience, I'll be able to be part of the solution as we move forward into this next group. Maybe we'll get an A, maybe it'll take a little time, but I think we're in the right, on the right trajectory. We have great leadership at the helm now that is inspiring to hear. I think one of the things that I failed to mention during the last question was the fact that there is so much evidence now based on the use of social media and devices, and we're really becoming more aware of how important those connections that we make between people are for our young learners. And I would like to make sure that we spend time doing that, because I think that will get us to the A. So thank you.
Jerry?
Rachel, I'm O negative. Universal, but I'm not. If I had to rate the Beverly school systems, I don't think it's easy to grade in one area because there are too many. I mean, I think we have some wonderful teachers, and I would give them probably anywhere from a B+ to an A+, depending on what. I think we have some great administrators. I think we have some wonderful programming. I think some of our deficits may come around like not involving families in enough stuff, not finding ways to engage children's families in their education and in like their discipline. I think bullying is a real issue. We say that it's not here in our community, but it is. And having been the parent of somebody who was bullied, and we're going back many years ago, the resolution was that we're not allowed to know what happened to the child that bullied her, but we did get a really nice letter written that said, "I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings," and then the bullying continued until we eventually had to pull her out of and put her in out-of-district school. It's still going on like that. I still see kids. I spoke to a woman around the corner from you, Lindsay, that just, her daughter is being bullied every day she goes to school, and they don't want to go anymore. I think if we involve the parents in that, and we involve them in the solution to that, and we engage them in the behaviors, maybe your kid can't come back to school, not that entry meeting that they have to have, but that entry meeting, and the parents have to meet with the parent of the child who is bullied. I don't know what the answer is, but I think that, yes, giving our schools, giving our schools a one-letter grade just isn't appropriate. I think we sort of run the gamut. We have room for improvement, and I think that we are able to improve that. We just have to really dig in. And budget constraints are there, but there are some things we can do that don't really add to the budget that would be able to sort of resolve some of the issues we have in the Beverly schools. Thank you.
Love that we're so good at our alphabetical order.
Thank goodness.
I think that for me, I have over 25 years of coaching youth sports. And my attitude in coaching was always to put my children, my team, into a division where we were not likely to win a single game. Because to be the best, you have to beat the best. And so then you have to balance. How do you not defeat your children? How do you not give them a defeatist attitude so that they say, oh, we're going to go to a game and we're going to lose again? So we don't focus on that particular outcome. Instead, we focus on intermediate outcomes. When you had a chance to box somebody out, did you box them out? Did you do what you needed to do to put yourself in a position to succeed? And there are multiple steps to that. So I'm not a fan of standardized testing. I'm not a fan of standardized grades. We are educating children based on a model from way too far back that says we're going to put everybody in a room together and treat everybody the same. And then we give them all the same kind of grade. And so I won't do that to our district because I don't think that we should do that to our children. And I think that, as somebody else already said, we have wonderful educators who are working so hard to bring out the best in every child and let us see in every child what they have as capabilities and as potential. And is there room for improvement? Absolutely. And are we bound in our roles as school committee by what we can do? Absolutely. We are statutorily limited to what we can do. So you can say all you want, that you want to be in a classroom or you want to affect a particular thing that's happening, and that's simply not in our purview. So we also have to keep that in mind, because I could stand up here and govern in poetry. I could campaign in poetry, but at the end of the day, I need to govern in prose, and I'm very limited. Thank you.
Mr. Leighton, you're asking a teacher to give a grade? This is powerful feeling. I actually, and I won't provide the rubric for the grade, but I will say my grade would be a C. And it's not necessarily because that C is average, it's because C stands for change. And that's what we need to be looking at this election year. We need to be making sure that our district is moving in a direction that is inclusive of all students. And right now we are not. So the C also stands for compassion. And that compassion allows us to be listeners as school committee members. It allows us to bring to table educators. It allows us to bring to table community members and students. Students need to be resources in our district. Right now, and in most districts, as Ms. Wisnick said, students are boxed into a classroom literally and treated as objects. They're fed information. I'm doing that myself as a teacher because that is part of our system in America. And that needs to change. Our students need to be our leaders, both inside the school and in our community. And so how do we move that C to closer to a B or an A? And that is to utilize the voices of this community. And regardless of your learning style, regardless of your learning ability, you are part of the solution. And I'm going to be working towards that as your school committee member. Thank you.
Thank you all. You can, yeah. And we're going to ask the city councilors at large to please come on up. Thank you, school committee candidates, for keeping the time really very tight there. We'll see now how the rest of the candidates do with this. All right. Here we go. Welcome. You're each going to get 1 minute to introduce yourself. Okay, and we're going to go alphabetical order, so because that is how we roll here. So Julie, you're going to go first. Okay.
Thank you to Paul and Andrea. Thank you to the Hastings House and the Farms Prides Association for having us here, and thank you to all of you for showing up and for being so engaged in your community. I am Julie Flowers. I am currently one of your at-large city councilors. At-large is a government way, a fancy way of saying citywide, which means wherever you live in Beverly, whatever neighborhood you call home, I am one of the city councilors who represents you, and I take that role and that responsibility and that privilege extremely seriously, and I thank you for the trust that you have placed in me. This is my 4th term as one of your at-large city councilors, my 2nd term as city council president, and I am currently running to represent you for a 5th term, should you decide to send me back to the city council. I grew up in Beverly. I grew up in Ward 3. I now live in Ward 4. I temporarily lived in Ward 2. I clearly have 3 more areas I need to get to. I'm the mom to a 14-year-old who just started his BHS career. I am a minister by day at First Baptist Church in Beverly, and I am looking forward to having the opportunity to keep showing up, meeting you, hearing your stories, understanding what I can do to help, and working to solve those problems together. Thank you so much.
Rick?
Thank you for the Hastings House for promoting this. I appreciate it. Name's Upolo Rick Marciano. I was born in Beverly, Massachusetts, and my parents eventually moved to Leominster, Massachusetts, where I grew up, Plastic Town, graduated from high school, and my mom got a phone call, and my dad, I was in the military 12 days later. So I served in the U.S. Army from 1980 until 2000 and retired. Then they called me back again in 2008 until 2010. But when I first retired in 2000, I came back to Beverly, Massachusetts because I love the ocean. I love being there. Then I got into city politics around 2003, and I was basically down the city hall. I was a watchdog down the city hall, going to all the meetings, seeing what was going on. And I just disagreed with some of the things they were doing, like what I disagree with in reference to Mayor Cahill or 6 of the city councilors. They voted that if you build a new house or a multifamily, it has to be 100% electric. And if you divert from that, you have to retrofit for solar panels. Thank you.
Thank you. Keenan?
Good evening, Beverly. So nice to see everyone, and I want to echo Julie Flowers' comments that I'm so happy to see you here because you could be home and elsewhere. It's a beautiful night in October. So my name is Kenan. My parents are Ken and Ann, if that's helpful. True story. I'm from the Caribbean, and we do that a lot, and sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. But it worked out in this case. So I really want to first just thank the city of Beverly while we have BevCam. Thank you to BevCam, because I fell in love with Beverly because Beverly was a place that really welcomed me. Many of you may know we have 5 children in our family, 3 of whom went through Beverly High School. We have our 3rd graduate in a row coming through the system. There's so many different ways that I've engaged with you all as community members. There are many different hats you've seen me wear, whether that's as a volunteer. I was one of the founding members of our NAACP. I've been on our school committee, which I joined during the pandemic. So first you met me with a mask on. But I want to say I want to appreciate all of you coming out today, and I look forward to our questions and getting to know you better. Thank you.
Kenny. John.
Okay, 60 seconds is not long to give a quick eulogy about myself, so instead I'm just going to say this. My wife's at home with our kids. Thank you very much, Liz, and for every other candidate that's up there. You all know how important it is to have a good partner, a strong partner, and the sacrifice that our families make. The other day at the Ward 2 Civic Association, all 3 of my kids were there. They were awful. They fought, and they're not here tonight, so you're welcome. Done.
Keeping it real here. Kyle?
Hi, thank you all for coming. My name is Kyle Rotalik. I'm born and raised in Beverly. Still live in Ryleside. Love it so much. And I'm also the chair of the Beverly Airport Commission. And I really love Beverly. I've moved all over, done years here and there, but Beverly is definitely the best place in the country. And I think that my experience living all over and is really going to benefit the city a lot when I get in. And thank you all for coming. I appreciate everything.
Good evening. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks to our host, Peter. Thank you so much. My name is Keith Sani. I'm running for City Council at large. I grew up to 2 teenagers in a working class family. My mom was 17. My dad was 19 when I made my triumphant debut. And, my mom worked backbreaking hours overnight as a nursing aide, would come home, get us to school, and would then go work odd jobs at places like fish markets. And it's that resilience and that commitment to family and to community that launched me into my own career in public service, where I started at 15, was working at the State House at 17, on to working for members of Congress, governors, and on public affairs projects where I brought communities like this together to solve big challenges. I'm very proactive. My phone number is 781-346-8416. Call me anytime. We've knocked almost 8,000 doors. We're going to knock on at least another 2,000 before Election Day. I'm looking forward to hearing from you folks. Let's keep the conversation going and let's solve some big challenges together. Thank you.
All right, Keith, that was good, but guess what? You're going first on this next question.
Make it easy. Come on now.
I'm going to ask the first question. What does transparency in community government mean to you? And do you think that this is an issue in our community? Why or why not?
Yeah, that's a very good question. It's obviously topic of the day. We heard it a lot from our school committee candidates as well, but I think a lot of folks are feeling like there's a lot of room for city government to be more proactive, like I mentioned before. One of the things I would like to do is actually formalize our community engagement standards. It's actually the first thing I'd like to work on. So as I mentioned, I worked on public affairs projects all around the state on behalf of state agencies like MassDOT or the MBTA, Department of Public Health, where we'd come into a community like this with a big problem or sighting of a big project, and we'd have to reach folks who a lot of time were very hard to reach. So environmental justice communities or new residents or folks who didn't often have a seat at the table. If we are doing our job well, you will know that when you come to a meeting like this, or like a town hall about the Family Dollar or something like that, stuff that we're doing all the time, you will know that your opinion has been baked into the process through data. We'll know at the end of that process what we can do better as a community to make sure you are getting the things that you need to wrap your arms around some big issues, right? Next year is going to be a real challenge. We know this, right? We've got a forecasted deficit in our budget. So if we are going to either cut services or raise your taxes, you need to know exactly what that's going to look like. And so we got to treat that process like a campaign. So I'm running my campaign, knocking a ton of doors, meeting folks where they are, in the same way I'd like to serve. And that is transparently, proactively, engaged, listening, coming to you, asking to hire me for this job. And I think if we're doing what we're supposed to do as a government, you'll feel the same thing. You'll feel like I'm knocking your door not just when I need your vote, but when I need your perspective. That's what I think transparency is, being out there on your doorstep, ready to listen, even when you're frustrated. I used to answer phones for the governor. I'll get to that later. But that's what I think transparency is, on your front door. Thank you.
Thank you. Kyle.
I think the transparency is extremely important, and I think it's a two-way street. I think that if you show up, you're going to know what's going on. I've gone to almost every city council meeting for the past, 8 months with Keith. I mean, we're there every single time, and it's empty. There's not one soul, unless they're being presented something or someone, maybe one or two people complain. I have the same problem at the airport. Second Monday of every month, we have our commission meetings. Nobody shows up. Everyone needs to show up. There needs to be that dialogue between everybody. If you don't show up, nothing's going to get done that you want done. I had an interview with a gentleman. He was complaining to me about the budget. And I was like, when did you show up for the city budget? And he's like, well, the day they voted. And I'm like, well, nothing's going to get done if you show up on the day they vote. You got to come months before. You got to reach out to the mayor, your ward representatives, your councilors at large. These are the people that are going to get the things done for you. So if you don't engage with us, we're there. We're always there. If you don't come to us, we don't know that your problems exist. So you have to tell us, and then we can make those changes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been brought to my attention that my daughter Mary was actually not bad that evening, but it was her older brother Jack. While I was on the planning board for a number of years in Beverly, we had a vote come before us about building single-family homes by the YMCA, the Next Generation Children's Learning Center. And at the time, the planning board had the option to allow the developer to use a loophole that instead of building an affordable housing unit, they can make a one-time donation to the city. And at the time, there was a member of the planning board who said that those people would not like to be living in this neighborhood. And while that doesn't fully address the element of transparency, I think it talks about the challenge of changing the mindset in the community. If a nominated and appointed official in this community can speak so openly about that, I think we need to take a stronger look at who are the volunteers who are serving, and also think about how are we presenting housing in our city. While working on the school committee, during the hiring of Dr. Chirocek, we received an email from a school administrator that essentially threatened to quit if Dr. Chirocek didn't get the job. And maybe this is the person sticking up for their friend, or maybe it's just a complete lack of thinking. But that's another example of the mindset that I saw in my two experiences, whether it's on the planning board or on the school committee. So everyone should understand how and when an elected official or an appointed official gets to their conclusion. And you can't have transparency without trust. It's 100% a two-way street. So thank you.
Good evening again. What does transparency mean? So what I'd like to do is at least approach this from the perspective of myself being a busy parent, business owner, educator, and working professional. I understand that people cannot always show up when they maybe would like to. We do have BevCam, we do have remote ways that people can access our meetings, but I think it's really critical to think about multifaceted ways of getting information to our community and to hear from our community. So my intention is to ensure that there is a feedback loop. And I do want to touch a little bit on our teacher strike because I had served on our school committee for about 4 years. I was not on the negotiating subcommittee, so I don't want to speak to what happened in those rooms. I respect my colleague. But what I will tell you is that even though I thought I might not hear pleasant things, I responded to each and every email, phone call, and text message. That was important to me. And I had people say, you must be so stressed and tired and this is hard. But that is my duty as a public official, to respond and to be available and to seek the ways that I can hear from the community when I'm perhaps not hearing from them. Some of my best conversations were parents who were saying, I am melting down here. Let me vent to you. I cherish those moments. And I would say, I cannot speak to what's happening in the room as someone who's not negotiating. But I can tell you that everyone is trying really hard. And I can admit to you that I was definitely near tears some nights because there were things I wish were clearer, right? But we do have the ability to educate as well. One of the things I'm really looking forward to is putting on the part of my hat that's professionally in the space of facilitation, to really think about ways outside of these formal settings to have dialogue. We know when you come to a public meeting, it may not feel very good to speak for 3 minutes and then sit down without a response. It doesn't feel very encouraging necessarily. So how can we create feedback loops that build on dialogue outside of these formal settings? I absolutely aim to focus on that as one of my first initiatives. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The city's executive meetings, those are basically classified, so we never get to any information whatsoever out of those. Not supposed to talk about them. But info, that's the most important thing. And the watchdogs, the individuals that do show up at every meeting, which I did years ago. Like I used to live down there. They try to put the information out. We have the internet that's actually there. So that's one of the ways you can do that. What I'd like to do, if it's legal, if I get handed a packet of information about this issue, that issue, this issue, that issue, I want to scan that and send that off so the public can actually read what we're reading. Because then you can directly get in contact with me, say, I read this, I read that, and you give the feedback back to me, and then I can put that information out to the public. So that's something I would definitely like to do, is to keep everybody informed. What I see, you're allowed to see, as long as it's authorized. You know, I'll do my best on that there. It's Rosemary Magley. I don't know if you remember her years ago. She was the watchdog, and Renee Mary. They called her the duck lady down on Hale Street. They were in deep. But what didn't feel good with the planning boards and all the other boards was if you weren't, when you spoke your heart out, but if you weren't a licensed expert, the majority of the individuals that were up there could care less what you had to say. So when that takes place, that's one of the reasons people don't show up at the meetings anymore, because they basically know. If they feel that if I'm not the expert speaking, it's just in one ear and it's just out the other. And in a lot of cases, that's what the city has proven, in the majority, from what I've seen. So in one ear and out the other, no considerations for the citizens. So I'll be different than that. And if I can respond back, if they allow me to do it with the councils, I'll respond back, because I need to know what you know and see what footsteps you walked in. Thank you very much.
So a hat I didn't tell you that I used to wear in a time before I ended up where I am now is that I was also a retail sales manager at a store called The Limited. It went out of business, not because of my bad management. But I had a regional manager there who would always say to us, perception is reality. Perception is reality. And so what I want to say about this question, which thank you for asking it, is that I think in a lot of ways there are lots of tools out there that help us to share information out with you, with the residents of Beverly, and at the same time, we can do better. And more than that, if the perception among folks in Beverly is that there is not transparency, then that is the reality and we need to address that. That's my strong feeling. So a few things that I wanted to share that I think are improvements, some of them even recent, that help to improve, I think, transparency and access. And they're things that I've seen changed over my years on the council. And I've been part of council conversations with the administration to help us move in this direction. One is that originally our budget process involved a very thick binder and line after line after line of municipal finance. And that was hard for the public to access. You could access it, but it was hard to follow. We've moved for the past 2 years to a program online called ClearGov. That means that you can go online as a resident of Beverly and look at the budget. And not just look at it, but you can change how you interact with it. You can ask it to show you information in a narrative or in different forms of graphs, so you can digest it differently. So that's one tool that I think improves what we have going. We also, as a city council, we've worked to have the administration come in for quarterly updates to ensure that in public meetings, we and you can hear what's happening in City Hall. I also have worked hard as council president to increase the accessibility at council meetings. BevCam is always there. Thank you, BevCam. But it's your space. The chamber is your space, and I believe that firmly. And so I have worked hard and will continue to work hard to make those agendas and the meetings less cumbersome for you to follow, and welcome you in and welcome your feedback. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Excuse me, the Massachusetts Municipal Association has released a report saying that cities and towns are facing, quote, a perfect storm of historic fiscal pressures when it comes to their budgets. Since the city is limited by Proposition 2.5 and how much revenue it can raise, what areas of the budget can you identify where cuts could be made?
We're going to start with, actually, with Julie. Yeah, we're going, yeah.
You know, this is really the question on everybody's mind. You know, we've mentioned a few times already in this room that we know from fiscal year 26 and from our financial forecasting that fiscal year 27 represents, in our budget process, we heard it called a fiscal cliff. It will be a challenging budget. You may have heard then in the budget process, or you may have heard out and about, that one of the topics of conversation that Ward 5 Councilor Kathleen Feldman, I see her here tonight, and I raised in that meeting was whether or not it is, in fact, time for the voters of Beverly to be able to vote, to think about a Proposition 2.5 override. My feeling is when we don't know what our community would say about something, when we can ask you directly, and the ballot is a way to do that, that is the best way for us to get data. I raise that because right now we don't have that piece of data. Paul, you rightly said we are capped by the laws of 2.5 in Massachusetts. And so a piece of data we don't have is Beverly inclined towards considering a Proposition 2.5 override? I think it's time to ask the voters that question. I do think there are areas of the budget that we'll need to look hard at. One is our sanitation line item. Our sanitation cost, I know it's a bigger topic given the summer that we all just had with sanitation. Our sanitation contract is due to expire in any case, our current contract, at the end of June. It will go out to bid. We'll be looking at new contracts. But we also need to confront the reality that sanitation costs are rising. They will rise, and we knew that. And our own ability to cover that sanitation fee by working collectively has not changed in the past years. So I think looking at our sanitation contract and being thoughtful about how we can put that out to bid, but also revise perhaps how we are funding that contract. That's one area. I do think that there are other areas of the budget that we can look to begin to think creatively about how we might make different choices or prioritize differently. But I think that's another one of those areas where I didn't get to say we should have more listening sessions and hear from you where you think we could make some changes to and be creative in our thinking together. Thank you.
Okay, Rick?
Under no circumstances a Proposition 2.5 override. We're already taxed to the big H right now. When you get done working, they pull the money out of your check. Then you go home, you go and buy, you get a gallon of gas, they're pulling 40 cents out of each gallon. Yeah. You go buy an item, they're pulling taxes out of there. You buy a new car, excise tax. For the rest of your life, you're going to pay excise tax on that. Taxes are coming from everywhere. We need a break somewhere so that the Proposition 2.5 it's not open for discussion in reference to me as an individual. There's certain individuals working for the city that may not need to be there. If you got an individual making $120,000, then you get benefits. That's $150,000. After 10 years, that's $1.5 million for that one individual. So we need to look at the individual jobs that they're actually doing. If they need to make a committee up, a specific committee, they can make it for that individual. They just run the committee. The planning board doesn't get paid, and a lot of the other boards they have across the city do not get paid at all. So some of those positions, they can become non-paid type systems is what they have. The state currently, they're acquiring what I use the word stealing. It's the same thing. They're going to steal $20.5 million from the students of the Beverly School District this year when you study what's going on with the 1993 Chapter 70 school funding law, which Mayor Cahill was part of, and he should have fought against that. Every student should be treated equal. When I did the full amount that they're given for education, $7.3 billion, added the 905-something thousand students we have in the state, each student should equally get $8,888. We're lucky to get $3,500 for our students. If you're a student in Lynn, the state gives them over $17,000. If you're a student in Lawrence, the state's giving them over almost $21,000. Stop stealing our money. Thank you.
Penny Ann.
All right. Thank you, everyone. So I appreciate the question, and I understand the latter part of it is about what should be cut. I do want to speak about it from a more comprehensive version. What I'd like to do is really think about, first of all, how do we have a more participatory budgetary process? And this is not my idea, although I loved it, but what I did is I looked up, are other people doing this? Are other municipalities doing this? And they are. There are places in the country where their budget process is longer, but it engages the community more deeply and more readily to make decisions. One of the things that I talked about earlier this week is whether Beverly has a sense of a North Star. Because without having a clear set of priorities that you're agreed upon in the city, it's difficult to know what is a priority, what is important, and what can be left behind, what can become a collaborative effort. And I also want to talk about the fact that I do sincerely believe that there are untapped revenues that would not leverage our residents in the same way as perhaps an override. I do believe that, to others' points, that we should be asking that question, but I think we should also be asking the question of, where are the revenues that we could be harnessing? We have the #1 zip code in the country, I hear. Bravo, Beverly, right? We are a destination. I would love for us to roll up our sleeves with our chamber, with Beverly Main Streets, with our local nonprofits to say, what is it that we can do to help people invest in Beverly, to bring revenue to Beverly in ways that we have not thought about? And I have to thank one of my friends who sent me an idea there, Jeff, talking about what we could do with low-hanging fruit, like parking fees, little user fees that you don't notice but add up and do a tremendous job to our budget. And the third thing I want to say is some of these issues, including our education funding, requires a collaborative coalition approach. It is not a local issue that is meant for us to spar about, but we can certainly work together with our state reps to address some of these larger funding formula questions. Thank you.
John.
Thank you very much. During my time in the school committee, I worked collaboratively with my fellow members to try and eliminate the kindergarten fee, which at the time we were one of 15 school districts that were essentially taxing parents to send their child to full-day kindergarten. Parents, for a very long time, have been trying to stop that. So it was a long time coming. Now we're facing a point where some members of the city council are considering bringing that fee back, and I cannot comprehend going backwards in that regard. The reality is we have to live within our confines. Prop 2.5 has a very complicated history. Like Councilor Flowers, I would love to see an override pass, let the voters decide, but not because John Mullady, liberal heart, thinks it's important, but create a subcommittee of citizens from all across the city to look at and work with our division leaders about how an override would benefit them. If you don't think we need an override, please go to the Central Firehouse and look at the conditions where those men are working. If you don't think we need an override, check out the softball fields at Hannah. One way we can talk about possibly saving money is having the city renegotiate our pilot payment in lieu of taxes with community organizations like Landmark, like Endicott, like Shore County Day. Possibly using Landmark as a way to lessen the financial burden for the special ed department and for our residents would be one avenue that I would strongly encourage us exploring. Thank you.
Kyle, but that's okay. Go ahead. He said you can go.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. No, Kyle. I'm sorry. No.
Go. You're up there.
I was very eager to answer,
I can
apparently.
see that.
Yeah. Sorry, Kyle. I guess. I believe we do need to have the conversation, for sure. I think there is so many challenges around the corner with the fiscal year 27 budget that you should be able to weigh in. Now, you might vote no, and then we have to, pivot and think about alternatives, but I think you ought to be brought in to have that conversation. As I mentioned in my last answer, we should be treating that process like a campaign where you have all the information that you need to make an informed decision. There's nothing to vote on today, right? There's nothing to support because there's no override question. We need to make sure that what we're baking into an override question is ideally a generational question, not something we have to do 2 years down the line again, or 2 years down the line after that. We have to make sure that what we're looking to invest in is sustainable. I echo John's point, though, too, about pilot agreements. I think that is potentially low-hanging fruit to get folks like Endicott, who own a significant amount of waterfront land, for example, to the table to talk about how we can maybe better work together and how they can contribute so the onus is not on the taxpayer. The other thing I'd like to work on is with our state representative, as this would take an act of the state, but things like real estate transfer fees. When you have humongous developments that are opened up here in Beverly, developed here in Beverly, and then sold in pretty short order, which has already happened on Rantoul Street, we should be thinking about how we can recoup some of that funding into our pot here in Beverly. You would have seen something called the Cabot Collection, perhaps, which was something like 10 properties for $22 million, where they talked about how they want to crank everybody's rents in the listing. I think with that mindset, there's room for us to come to the table, bang on the table, and make sure some of that revenue is coming back into Beverly and not being taken out of your bank account. So that's some of the alternatives that we can work on, but I do think we need to have that larger conversation. Thank you.
It's hard to follow all that. I mean, I echo almost everything everybody says. I think my experience at the airport has really opened my eyes to how things actually work behind the scenes. And yes, we can have ideas of, oh, can we charge more taxes here, or should Endicott be giving a bigger share? It might be written into law from 50 or 60 years ago that they are stuck in just giving this amount of taxes, and that's all they have to do. And we have that at the airport. And so I think we really need to, again, have transparency with everything. And we really need to make sure that the people that are managing all of our departments are good people that are doing a good job, and because they're bringing the budget to the table. The mayor is doing an incredible job trying to get this to the city council so that we can review. All the department heads are so important. And again, it's everyone coming to the table and asking your city councilor, going to department heads and talking to those people and having those conversations and finding out what's actually going on and knowing ahead of time. And also looking into, I like what Julie said about the waste, and I have some incredible ideas how we could save on sewer and water moving forward. There's some big gaps we can fill in that department, and I really am into zero energy and trying to be, very responsible in that aspect. And I think we have a lot we can get out of that. And I think that we also need to look into some other areas that we haven't looked before. And we did that at the airport. There was a law passed years ago, in I think the late 80s, early 90s, of a tax that we could implement, and nobody ever did it. And somehow we figured it out, and it brought an enormous revenue stream in for the airport in the past 2 years. And that's because we brought on an incredibly great manager. And it's just been incredible at the airport, and I think that that can also be played into the city, and again, working with the mayor and having conversations with all the department heads all throughout the year to find out where we need to be, and working together is the most important part. Thank you.
We have one last question, and we're going to start with Keith.
Candidates for public office in Beverly often say that the #1 complaint they hear from constituents is the conditions of the roads and sidewalks. What should the city do to improve the roads and sidewalks?
Yeah, definitely. As I mentioned before, I've knocked something like 8,000 doors, and I can attest that it is the #1 thing people relay. We hear about housing, we hear about schools, we hear about climate resiliency and affordability, but roads definitely outpaces all other issues. And you see it in every corner of the community. You've seen areas like, let's say, Goat Hill, which have not necessarily been touched in quite some time and have been, a playground for National Grid. You see it in right up the street. We literally holding signs coming in and say, oh, this sidewalk could use some work. And so one of the things I'll say, first of all, is that my wife and I are the only two people, I believe, in the city outside of the bike and pedestrian folks to go on every single walk audit that's been held to date. We take this point very seriously because we believe in accessibility. We believe in making sure that folks can get around safely, particularly as we consider a sort of multimodal future where folks feel like they don't necessarily need to rely on their car for every single trip they want to take in the community. Obviously, our budgets are dependent on bringing in additional revenue to make sure that we can have a transparent, clear process in terms of how we are going to invest in our infrastructure. I think a couple of things that we can do, and I think is being done, but we can kind of bang a little bit louder. I used to work projects for firms like Eversource or Grid, and they will often say yes if you yell loud enough about mitigation. And when they're coming up and tearing up streets regularly, making sure that we're getting the most out of those relationships so that they are paying for the lion's share of roads and sidewalk repair is an obvious win for the city. So we can continue to do that. And again, it will derive from additional revenue sources like a pilot agreement, like a real estate transfer fee that we can then clearly, transparently budget for roads and sidewalks. Right now, I know the mayor is driving a lot from our free cash, and that's great. I'm glad a lot of roads are getting done, but we have to have a much clearer process going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Kyle.
So I haven't done 8,000 doors. I have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, and they take up a lot of my time. So I drive for Lyft and Uber, and I drive about 6 nights a week, and I drive all through Beverly all night long, and there are some really great parts, and there's some not so great parts. I grew up here. I said this the other night, the 90s was not a great road and sidewalk era for Beverly. I mean, you could literally, you'd see roots from the trees growing through the sidewalks. It was awful. So in my eyes, we're doing pretty good, I think. I know it's tough for some people in some areas, but again, if you show up to city council meetings when the mayor presents or they show the list, the extensive list of paving that's going on every year, it is impressive. And again, we are, fiscally tight. We're trying to find money to do all this. And like he said, you got to knock on the door and the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And we have a great team in the city. Catherine is an incredible grant writer, and they just hunt down these amazing grants. The fire department just got $250,000 to get outfitted with wildfire equipment. And so if you have a good team running the city, you'll find that money and you'll be able to attack the things you need to. And yes, roads are very important, but I think we need to also do schools, and there's a whole gamut of things that need to be taken care of. And I think, again, with a great team, like anyone up here, everyone up here has amazing ideas and amazing plans, and I think that we're not going to go wrong in this election. Everybody here is just so passionate and good people too. I feel like there's nobody up here that's a bad person, and I think we're really going to move forward in the next couple years. Even though it's a tough financial year coming up, I think we have some amazing brains up here that are going to figure it out, regardless of who gets into office. So please, I think my biggest ask for everybody is just to get out and vote and just show up. So thank you.
Thanks, Kyle. John.
Thank you. This fall, I started my 20th year of teaching, and I know what you're thinking. I do look good for my age, thank you.
Yeah.
But my teaching experience and being a father of three, my circle of friends and people I encounter, often they come up to me with questions about the city, and it's not about the conditions of roads and sidewalks, it's about the conditions of the schools. And recently, the Boston Globe did an article where our school district had settled 38 lawsuits to the special ed department between 2013 and 2023. And I asked you to think about this. If the fire department, parks department, police department had 38 lawsuits settled, we would have gotten to the bottom of this by now. We would have figured out what was going on. And that means to me, as a teacher, parent, coach, those are 38 families that have the financial means, the bandwidth, and the ability to take it that far. How many hundreds of families weren't able to continue to pursue their child's education? So I'm not minimalizing roads and sidewalks. I'm definitely not minimalizing and deflecting the question. But I feel as though we owe it to our kids, we owe it to our community to fund an audit, to bring in some experts to figure out what is going on in the special ed department. Thank you.
Ken-Ann?
Thank you so much. I do think that one of my most cherished campaign moments was trying to do our own family walk audit with a stroller and our toddler. There is a video about it, and I also had to admit to having some Captain Dusty's ice cream the same day. So I had like 2 reasons that I was going on this walk. I have to say, living in Ward 2, I live 2 blocks away from National Grid. And actually, we are not neglected. In fact, we have overly engaged with National Grid. I think our street has been dug up about 4 times in the last 5 years. Once because a camera fell into the road and they had to get uncovered. So I say all that to say, one of the conversations that I think needs to happen is the way that some of this has been a unilateral conversation. We have a utility that is necessary, but is also a monopoly. And they tell us when and how they're going to do certain things. I do believe that is a situation that is ripe for more of a conversation rather than just getting a notice on your door. I think if there is a way for us to engage in a process that requires multi-year planning and planning that is cross-sectored and cross-city, we need to engage in that. I have seen efforts on the part of my ward council for sure, because we are so severely affected by this. We have actually gone to the park and we've actually begun the seeds of those conversations. So I'm very, very hopeful that that is the direction we're going in. But it needs to be a part of a concerted plan rather than an ad hoc neighborhood by neighborhood or necessity. We've had streets dug up because, oh, we forgot we need to change a sewer line, but we just put that in there. And then, by the way, the sidewalk is going to get dug up while we dug up your street. So these are things that are not just inconveniences, but it's actually, I think, symptomatic of planning that does not engage the community very well. And I think we do need to ensure that all the stakeholders involved in this process are also a part of our city's process and conversations with us. Thank you.
Rick?
I've been to the engineer's office. They got a nice computer there, and they'll show you all the streets in Beverly. There's a grade for every street they have. If they build, when they're going to build a new street, they want to try to put the gas in first, change any water lines out, do that prior before they put the new street in. If anybody opens the street up after that, they have to pay a fee. It could be up to $4,000 if it's a brand new road. So there's a system there. But I think the biggest problem we have is the cost to redo the streets. If you go to other states, New Hampshire as an example, I don't have the exact numbers, but they may pay 80% less than what we pay. So if it cost us $1 million for a mile, it may cost them $200,000. So the system is broke right now. Why are we paying so much in the state of Massachusetts, and you jump over across to another state and they're paying a lot less. So we need to look at what they're doing. That may be a way that we can do a lot more renovations of our streets right now. Some streets, I remember knocking on doors years ago, and the streets weren't paved in 30 years. So right now, we're talking some streets 40 years or more. And I'm sure a few of you all here can contest to that. You know exactly what I'm talking about. That's another tax also. When you have to go to the garage and get your car serviced because you've been driving through all those potholes, you're paying more money on that. At the same time, you're paying your excise tax for the roads. And again, gasoline, you're paying over 40 cents every gallon that you buy. Where's the money going? But I kind of explained that. If New Hampshire can do it for 80% less in some cases, we should be able to do the same thing. So we need to study the cost, ways to work around that. Maybe we could buy the equipment, but I haven't studied that. Some felt that we buy our own equipment, but then we have to hire more city workers. That's more pensions. But that's just an idea. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You know, I always say that roads and sidewalks and schools, those really are the two things that impact pretty much everybody in the community. If one doesn't touch your life, the other one does. And they really are the two most talked about because they hit very close to home. You walk out your door and you see your road. You walk down your sidewalk, you take your children or your grandchildren to school, and you hear about their experiences there. If you are seeing your road or sidewalk and you see a pothole or it doesn't look good to you, I always say nobody is wrong. It is absolutely true that we are playing some level of catch up on streets, on roads and sidewalks in Beverly because difficult budget years in the past meant that we couldn't get to as many streets as we might have wanted to. And so now we have streets that it's not wrong to say they have not been paved in many years. So what we need now is a proactive plan forward, and I think that is a step-by-step process. One of the pieces of it really is talking with all of you. I always appreciate when people let me know what they see. I too walk around a lot in Beverly, but I don't necessarily walk your walk route. And so hearing from you about what you're seeing or what your sidewalk is like is really helpful. Having a proactive strategy with National Grid in terms of when they cut into the street. It is true that we have worked as a city on being really proactive with them, getting them out ahead of roads that we expect to be paved in our 3 or 5 year paving plan. And then it is also correct, it was already said tonight, but if they need to come back and cut into a newly paved road, the fee to do that is much higher. And so I think in doing that, we can continue to work proactively with them. That gets better utilities under your streets, but also hopefully takes better care of your streets, especially once they are repaved. I think continuing to be very transparent with all of you about what those street gradings are and then what the 3 and 5 year paving plan looks like. You can see that on the city website. I think the more we can help share that out, it doesn't always mean that your street will be on it or that my street will be on it, but I think together when we understand what the plan is, that feels a lot more proactive than feeling like we're sort of in the dark about what's going to happen. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you to our city councilors at large. You're all set. And we're going to be ready for our 2 mayoral candidates.
Sure, I can do that, if that's okay.
Nice job, Jim.
Yeah. Yeah, I think some of these are good.
Nice work up there.
I think it's fair to add.
I do too.
Okay.
It's up there.
I'll save it for maybe.
Yeah. Hi. Oh yeah, we are very warmed up. Hi.
I think it's 1 minute. Is it a 1 minute opening?
1 minute opening. Let's just have everybody come down a little bit. We have our 2 candidates. They have a couple more questions, so we're going to get started. They're each going to get 1 minute as an introduction statement. So I guess Mayor Cahill, that would be you first. Okay? And the timekeepers will show you some really bright.
Hello. Okay. Hi, it's good to see everybody. Thank you, BevCam. Thank you to the team that put this together. And I want to thank everybody here because for the last 12 years, you collectively have given me the honor of leading our community. And so where are we 12 years later? We are living in one of the most desirable, most welcoming, and most financially strong communities in the country. We have been able to deliver outstanding world-class services across our community. Our beaches and our parks have never looked better. We have been able to increase staffing and resources for public safety, police and fire, for veterans, for seniors. We bought the first fire ladder truck in a generation, and we added a fourth crew so that we have 4 trucks on duty at all times. We have increased our school funding by 77% in 12 years. And we've done all this at a time when, as you heard Paul point out, the state has there's a report statewide that shows just how hard it is for cities and towns because the resources from the state don't keep pace with our needs. And it's really left up to all of us. So there's a lot to talk about. I'm here tonight, as we all are, to seek your vote. I just want to ask you humbly and respectfully to vote for me on November 4th. Thanks.
I'd like to start by thanking our hosts, thanking BevCam for recording, and thanking each and every one of you for taking the time to attend and hear from the candidates. My name is Brendan Sweeney. I'm currently an at-large city councilor, and I'm running for mayor of Beverly. And there are 3 main reasons why I'm running for mayor. The first is that I have the experience to do the job. I've been a city councilor since 2021, but that's a part-time job. My full-time job is working for the town of Boxford as the assistant town administrator and finance director, where I manage the budget, negotiate with unions, and manage large projects. The second reason that I'm running is that I believe it's time for a change. Now, I've served with Mayor Cahill, and I respect his service to Beverly, but I believe that the current administration is falling short of the standard that Beverly residents deserve. If I'm elected mayor, I will be responsive, transparent, I will plan for the future, and I will engage directly with our union employees. And the third reason that I'm running is that my wife and I are invested in this community. We know that this is where we're raising our family, and I want to make sure it remains a welcoming and desirable place to live. Thank you. I look forward to tonight's conversation.
Brendan, just stay up there. Brendan, stay up there. You're going to be first.
All right.
Thank you. Well, we've talked a lot about the budget already, so
Yes.
we definitely need to address it here. But as mayor, what would your plan be for addressing this fiscal cliff? Where could we possibly make cuts, in which position on a 2.5 override?
So thank you, Paul. What I think is really important is that we take a comprehensive approach to managing the deficit that we're looking at in FY27. And as of our last financial forecast, that deficit is projected to be over $6 million. So clearly we're in a situation that needs some thought, care, and attention, and resident input most of all. When we talk about an override, I view that as an option of absolute last resort. And so I essentially see us as needing to take multiple steps before we even consider asking the voters to raise taxes. Those steps start with looking at our operations, both on the city and the school side, and determining where can we be more efficient. On the city side, one thing that I see is that the mayor currently has at least 16 direct reports. And there are 8 people in the mayor's office, including the mayor, which has grown from 2 people when Mayor Scanlon left office at the end of 2013. And now I don't think it's a bad thing that we've added these positions. Many serve important functions, but what I see us needing to do to start is looking at whether there can be efficiencies from combining departments in a way where cross-functionalities can work well together. Are there positions that can be rolled into another department? Can we empower those department heads to oversee the entirety of the area? And can we implement new technologies, be more efficient, and then potentially look at where we can cut back, whether it's staff that are no longer necessary, or if we're utilizing new technology, maybe we're providing services in a more cost-efficient way. Next, I think we need to look at our non-tax revenue sources, our fees. We need to look at ways that we can revise our pilot agreements. And I think a lot of our councilor at-large candidates made very good points. We need to get creative on that end. Are our fees equitable, and do they match the services being provided? Do the pilot payments that we're bringing in from nonprofits represent what we are actually spending on public safety or other expenses that we provide to these nonprofits? And so I see that as the next step. Third, and I think this is crucial, we need to continue advocating for increased state aid. Paul, you mentioned a report. I was on the board of the MMA that authored it. That's a big step. We need to be loud and vocal. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So first, on Proposition 2.5, we can't be afraid to have the conversation, but I also agree that there are many things we still have to try before we need to get there. This year's budget is a strong one. All of our employees on the city and school side are in the middle of strong, fair contracts. When I took office, the city had next to no reserves. We built our cash reserves to a level that is 19% of our annual operating budget, and the best practices from the Department of Revenue say that you need to be between 13 and 23% of your operating. So we're in a good place. It doesn't mean that we don't have to be extremely careful, but we balanced our budget every year, and we've been able to do that in a number of ways. I created the grant director position. You've heard Catherine laud it already. She's brought in over $90 million since we created that position. We have been able to facilitate with smart zoning and smart economic policies the type of economic investment in our community that creates new growth every year, creates new value in properties, and that helps us meet our need for additional funding for services. So, you know, moving forward, yes, we absolutely have to keep working hard to get at money beyond tax revenues. The state conversation, the state absolutely needs to do right by us because they're not doing right by almost any community in the state. I personally think that special education funding is the best place for us to focus our efforts with the state. I've been working with the governor's office, with Senate leadership on that because every district in the state, every community in the state has children whose needs are great, and children need what they need. So the ability to increase funding for special ed students can help every community in the state. That's where I think we need to put our focus in our work with our legislative delegation and with the governor and her team. Thank you.
Thank you. In the course of your campaigning, what have the constituents told you are the most important challenges to them personally and to the community? And how do you propose to address them in the next 4 years?
Thank you. So there are three main challenges that I consistently hear when we are out knocking on doors. The first is a concern with the lack of communication and transparency at City Hall. From a communication piece at its most fundamental level, people are concerned that the current administration is not responsive. They struggle to get a meeting with the mayor. They struggle to get a call back from members of the administration when they reach out with basic constituent concerns. And at its core, I think that is the most important thing that we can do as local elected officials is be responsive and address constituent concerns. So that's one thing that I plan to improve upon. I plan to make sure that residents get a call back or an email back when they reach out to me, as is the case if they reach out to me now as a city councilor. I'll institute an open door policy to make sure the residents know I'm accessible and that they can reach out to me. And then from a communication piece, what's really important is not just that personal level, but at a macro level, how are we getting information to residents about the projects that are taking place in the city? And I think that starts with making sure that the mayor is working directly with the city council to get information to the council and by extension residents about ongoing projects. That was a big shortcoming with the library HVAC project, where the administration went almost 2 years without bringing information to the city council about the increased cost of that proposal. That's something that I would change. I would utilize podcasts, videos on social media, like I have been doing in my campaign, to make sure that we are bringing information directly to residents about the important work going on in our city. The next two that I hear about, roads and sidewalks, we've talked a lot about. I will build upon our 3-year plan to make clear cost estimates and clear timelines of when the work's going to be taking place, and I will make that readily accessible to residents. The third thing I hear about is our schools, and wherever you land on the issue of whether we need more funding or what the solution is to heal the district coming out of the strike, the number one thing I hear about is that it is important for residents to see the mayor directly engage with the folks on the ground, teachers and paraprofessionals. I intend to do just that if I'm elected mayor. Thank you.
Do you mind repeating the question?
Sure. In the course of your campaigning, what have constituents told you are the most important challenges personally and in their community that they're facing, and how do you propose to address them in the next 4 years?
Thanks. Small business community is really coffee shops, restaurants, retailers, really fighting to survive. We're working incredibly hard to create a new economic development action plan, but that takes time. And in the meantime, we're doing everything we can, business by business, block by block, to try to help our small business owners survive. We're working with landlords. To try to help everybody understand landlords need their tenants, the tenants need their landlords to work with them. So that's an effort right now. Roads and sidewalks, we've been able to bring a combination of federal, state, grant, and local dollars. We spent over $100 million in the last 12 years on roads, sidewalks, intersections. We've improved traffic flow. We've made roads safer for all users. There was a huge backlog of this work when I started. We're going to keep at it. Fear. There are so many people in our community who, particularly this year with what's been going on at the national level, are scared to death. Our LGBT community is afraid for their kids, afraid for their loved ones. Our immigrant community, our people of color in our community, the people who have built this community, people whose ancestors have built our country. I've always been a champion for our LGBT community. When I was your state representative, I fought at the State House for marriage rights for same-sex couples. And now some of those same rights, which they're strong in this state, but they're being challenged and they're at risk elsewhere. And it's incredibly, we need our local leaders to stand strong, arm in arm, to fight for and champion the rights of all of our residents. Everyone has the right to the same rights as everyone else. And in this community, that's the case. We have to fight to keep that here and beyond. Thanks.
Thank you. I let you get a drink of water, but you're going to answer the first one this time.
This is a question from the audience. Who did you vote for in the presidential election? Why? And what does that say about how you will lead the city of Beverly?
Oh, gosh. I voted for the former Vice President Kamala Harris. What does it say about how well, I'm leading the way I'm leading. As I just said, to my mind, the most important thing in this community is that everyone belongs. Everyone has value. Everyone needs to know that, and everyone needs to not only feel, but be safe in our community and be at the table and be contributing. So I think that's pretty straight, pretty simple to say. Since I have a little more time, I do want to touch on our teacher strike, because I told you that we've worked incredibly hard for 12 years to resource our schools. And when things started looking like they might go the way of a strike last year, we tried incredibly hard to listen and to respond. And the money we put on the table is the best contract in the history of the city. And I will say, I hoped and tried incredibly hard to prevent the strike from happening. Once it did, it was hard for everybody. A lot of wonderful people struggled with each other. And yet at the end of it, we have really strong contracts. And our challenge is, this is the most important school year in our city's history, I believe, and how we move forward in building and rebuilding and working with each other. And I went through the endorsement process with the BTA, and I had a fantastic meeting with their leadership. I felt really good about all the commonalities we have, because I always have made Beverly Public Schools first. I went through the Beverly Public Schools. My mother taught in them for 20 years. I taught in them. As mayor, I've tried to push as much resources. I'm in the schools a lot. So I know there have been criticisms of me, but I'm fully committed 100% to working with all of our educators and with our parents and with our students to try to make this community and the school district truly great every day of the year. Thanks.
So I wrote in the name of a politician that I greatly admire in this past presidential election, former Senator and former Governor Mitt Romney. And he's a politician that I believe in the last few years in DC really exemplified what it means to stand on principle and to lead with common sense and compassion at a time of high division and high tension. And now I see what's going on at the national level. I see the uncertainty and the division, and I understand the fear that many residents in this community have for a variety of reasons. And I think Mayor Cahill was right in when he said it's very important that as local leaders, we set the tone, we rise above the partisanship and the division. And especially when we think about marginalized communities. I was raised to believe that every single person deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. That's how my wife and I will be raising our children, and if mayor, that's how I will approach the job. I will make sure that no matter your race, your religion, your sexual orientation, or your gender, that you feel welcomed in this community. And I will make sure that we live that out in two very tangible ways. We as a city have committed ourselves to non-discrimination policies, both in city government, in the schools, and I believe that it's very important that we carry out the letter of those policies to the fullest extent, but also that we carry ourselves with that mentality when we interact with our neighbors. I think that's incredibly important, that folks in this community, no matter where they come from, no matter what they believe, that they know that they can go down to Cabot Street, they can go to Atomic Cafe, they can have a great conversation with their neighbors about how they're going to improve our community, and they know that they won't be discriminated against. Bullying, it is incredibly important that we as school leaders as city leaders work very closely with the school administration to make sure that children can learn in a safe environment, especially for children from immigrant communities who may be concerned about their safety in the school, or their parents that may be concerned about what might happen to them after they drop them off in school. On top of that, we need to make sure that students are taught to treat each other with respect, and they're only going to learn that if they both hear it, but see it by example from the folks in their house and their city leaders. I plan to lead by example. Thank you.
We have one final question, so Mike, you want to come up? You can be first? Yeah? No, you can. Yeah.
You don't get to think longer. Yeah, I guess. We all want to be the second.
Yeah.
Right.
I know we've talked about this a little bit already, but since people say it's one of their biggest issues in the cities with roads and sidewalks, if you can talk specifically about what the plan is going forward to improve the roads and sidewalks.
Yeah. So, as I said, we have and will continue to go after the types of money that can help us do the big projects. We just finished in Ryleside Bridge Street, a Bridge Street reconstruction. Yeah, that's a big one. And the thing is, it's about a $16 million project, so no community can do that. Well, no community our size can do it on our own. So that you go to get on the state list for projects like that. We had built a line item for road and sidewalk work, and we've needed over the last 2 fiscal years to bring that back down to support our other budgetary needs. And that's okay. Because we have strong reserves, and if we manage them well, we should be able to use some of them for roads and sidewalks moving forward. We have a multi-year plan. It's always a draft until you get to probably the 1 year out from this year. But along the way, we work with, you've heard some of this, we work with the utilities and let them know. These are the streets that are on the horizon. If you've got work to do in these streets, you come in and do it now, because once they're paved, you can't. So we do that work. Every 2 years, we have a company come in and drive every foot of our 160 miles of roads, and they have sensors and computer equipment, and they evaluate the integrity of the road surface. And every area, every street, every stretch of a longer road get a grade. And that grade helps us to determine who needs to have their street done next and next. That is impacted at times by the knowledge that we may have a need to improve stormwater management, sanitary drinking water, sewer infrastructure under a given street that may jump it up the list. But those are some of the things that go into how things get prioritized. How we're going to pay for it is we need to work each and every year to continue to facilitate the type of economic investment that'll help us in the tougher times. And we're going to need to be honest with ourselves about how much we're able to spend each year. And we'll just keep doing as much as we possibly can, recognizing that I can't promise you 2 years, 3 years exactly how much we'll do. You know, we all have to be realistic about our resources. But thank you for the question. Thanks, everybody, for this evening. Thanks.
Would you mind restating the question, Paul?
Yes, just about the roads and sidewalks, and what would your plan be specifically as mayor to address the roads and sidewalks?
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And what I want to be clear is we have a foundation in place with a 3-year plan. It took about 10 years after the mayor took office for that plan to first be created, and right now it is a list of roads and sidewalks that we hope to address over the next 3 years. I view that as a good foundation, but one that really needs to be built upon, both for the benefit of residents and the benefit of clarity for city government in terms of the standard that we've set for ourselves. The mayor mentioned that it's difficult to promise funding years in advance, and I think that's true, but I do believe we as a city should make a baseline commitment and say that we will spend no less than $2 million a year. Ideally, that funding comes out of the operating budget. In years past, the mayor has reduced the amount of funding in the operating budget for roads and sidewalks and has instead turned to free cash. If we maintain that commitment, I believe free cash can be a reasonable funding source, but there's no reason that we can't say locally, we will spend at least $2 million. We anticipate, if the state maintains their current commitment, at least $3 million in state funding, whatever the number may be exactly. That would mean we know we have $5 million or $15 million over 3 years. We should clearly outline where those dollars will go. We know how much the work costs, from as small as crack seal replacements to as large as a total reconstruction of a roadway. There's no reason that with those estimates, we can't map out how much the estimated projects will cost, add that information to the plan, and make clear to residents exactly where their dollars will go. And by doing so, we also make clear to residents our commitment to use money in the Road and Sidewalk Capital Fund for road and sidewalks. If I'm mayor, no longer will that funding go toward large intersection projects that really should be separate requests with the city council to approve. Every dollar in the Road and Sidewalk Fund will go to paving your roads and rebuilding your sidewalks if I'm mayor, and it'll be clear how much each of that work costs and how much we expect to get done over the next 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Yes, indeed. Thank you also. I'm not quite as tall as these guys. I have to say, I've never done this before in a group like this. I am so proud of this community and so pleased that you all turned out. It's fantastic. All the candidates agreed readily to come to it, even though there have been 4 other events this week, I think. And I appreciate Paul and Andrea as the moderators. Joan and Carolyn for keeping us on track. But especially all you candidates for bringing it in respectfully. It's an amazing job. Just sitting down here and just watching, they'd see it and they'd give a nod or something. They came in very close to plan. I thought we'd be over at 8:47. It's 8:52. Nice job to everybody. And I also want to thank all my colleagues at Hastings House for helping set this up and staying around to take it down. And BevCam, of course, for being here and taping us. And now two brief commercials. One of them is, I want everybody in this room to find the Beverly Beat. It's a news Substack that Paul Leighton puts out. It's low cost, very low cost. I don't know how he's staying alive. Subscribe to it. Give a gift subscription to a friend, because it's really good reading. In this time when we need nice, good news, he gives some hard news too. But in a time when we need nice news, fun news, he's doing a great job with a lot of these stories. So thank you.
Thank you.
Coming attractions at Hastings House. We're kind of switched things up. We have Haunted Hastings, which is Saturday the 25th. If you haven't been in this basement in the last 2 years, you haven't seen the changes. You won't see them all. They may jump out at you, but it is fantastic. David O'Brien does a fantastic job. He lives 2 houses away. He needs a round of applause. He loves this stuff. He uses middle school and high school kids to help out. Sometimes it's to scare people. Sometimes it's to take them through when they are scared. But it's a great take, and it's coming up, and everybody's welcome. And it's not just a Beverly Farms thing. Everybody in Beverly is welcome to come to it. Second, we're going to switch things up even further. On November 15th, we're having the first ever wrestling match right here. Professional wrestling. The rink, I think, is either 20 by 20, picture that, or 20,
no, it's not you two.
24 by 24. When that first came up, I thought, this is insane.